Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I'll be showing you guys what is the absolute best Warlock build in the entire game. With this build, you can have your grenade up literally all the time, so you can just spam it and absolutely delete everything, which is just a ton of fun. Honestly, this is one of the best builds that I've ever used in this game, and I just have an insane amount of fun using it. The build literally has everything: insane ad clear with grenades and your weapons, very good boss DPS in the form of your heavy weapons and your super, and insane survivability with Devour and even some well mods. Not only that, I'll also be showing you guys multiple different exotics that you can use and why each of them are good for different scenarios so that you can swap around based on the type of content that you're doing and your personal preferences. Maybe, you want your grenade to melt bosses because that's a lot of fun. Maybe you want to throw scatter grenades every 5 seconds, or maybe you just want to permanently close off an area with a vortex grenade and get your grenade back without even having to get a kill. There's an absolute ton of variation and a lot of different ways that you guys can set this up based on your preferences, and honestly, it's a lot of fun swapping around and using different things for different content. I'll make sure to cover all of these setups, but as such, the video may get a little long, so my apologies there, since there's just so much to explain here. At the end of the video, I'll have images of each of the builds so you guys can easily copy them, so make sure to stick around until then. This video took a while to make, so if you found it helpful, please make sure to drop a like, as that helps me out a ton, and I'm streaming a ton over on Twitch, and I'd love to see more of you guys around, so if you want to support me extra, feel free to check me out at twitch.tv/nick2. I also plan to make a video in the future going in depth with each Warlock exotic and comparing them to each other to determine which ones I think are the best, so you guys know which ones are the best to use, so make sure to subscribe for that. But I'll of course be covering that in this video, just not as in depth. And I'll also be uploading a very strong hunter build tomorrow that pretty much enables you to be invincible without even using the glaive, so make sure to check that out. Without further ado, let's just get right into the build. Alright, so before we talk about exotics, let's talk about what our goal is with this build. Our goal ultimately is to be able to spam grenades as much as humanly possible, regardless of what grenade that we're using. The main reason that we want to do this is not only that spamming grenades is a lot of fun, Void 3.0 grenades do just an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage, and there's nothing more enjoyable than seeing a group of ads and just throwing a grenade and melting them with that, so that's the main reason. But secondary to that is Elemental Ordnance. The reason that we care about Elemental Ordnance is because it is probably the single best well creating mod in the game, just because you're able to get your grenade cooldown so low, and this is always going to guarantee spawn an elemental well. The reason that we want elemental wells is not only that it's going to give us additional ability energy, meaning that we're able to spam grenades even more. The main reason that we want it is because Font of Might plus Volatile Flow with a void weapon, which there's a lot of void weapons. I'm sure many of you guys have seen Funnel Web. I mean, the gun is absolutely insane, but there's a lot of other weapons that you can use that I'll make sure to cover in this video as well. But basically, the whole point is you're spawning a bunch of void wells, getting Font of Might so your void weapon does 25% extra damage, and then getting Volatile Flow so that your void weapons has volatile rounds, which is absolutely broken for ad clear. And then you don't have to use an exotic for ad clear. You can use, a legendary such as Funnel Web or Gnawing Hunger or something else, so that you can ad clear, and then you can use an exotic in the form of Wither Horde or Parasite or literally anything else. It really just frees up your build a lot, and there's literally no better ad clear in the game. That's pretty much the main reason that we care about grenades. I mean, I don't really think you guys need much of a reason to want to spam grenades. But with Warlock, let's talk about the exotics. There's a ton of different exotics that you can use in order to actually be able to spam your grenades. In this video, I'm going to cover 3 setups, which I think are the 3 best setups. Of course, there are more exotics that are in the game. I'll briefly touch on the ones that I don't think are very good, and then let's talk about the ones that I think are better. So first off, Nezarec Sin. Nezarec Sin obviously is good. Every kill is going to give you increased ability energy, especially a void kill. However, that's pretty much all that it does, and all you care about right now for this build is getting your grenade back as fast as humanly possible, and Nezarec Sin is not what is going to be the absolute best for getting your grenade back. As you can see in this image that I got from a spreadsheet, Nezarec Sin is only going to give you pretty much a percentage amount of your grenade or ability energy per second, meaning that it's going to take a little bit more time for Nezarec Sin to actually enable you to get your grenade back, and what we want is to have our grenade back immediately. Also, the only thing that this is going to do is just give you ability energy recharge rate, which Devour already does intrinsically. This is going to make it faster, but that's the only thing that it's going to do. Similarly, Eye of Another World pretty much is the same thing, however, just does a little bit worse. Eye of Another World is mainly good for when you're playing a class that isn't Void, because, if you're playing Void, Nezarec Sin is just categorically better. Not really going to talk about it. It's just going to give you ability energy, but it's just not nearly as good as the other options. The other option that I see a lot of people using, surprisingly, is Secant Filaments, where your Empowering Rift is going to give you Devour, and then whenever you do damage within your Rift, it's going to give your weapons Overload. I have a hot take, please don't get mad at me. I think that this is actually the worst option out of all of them, because you can literally just have an aspect that gives you Devour by default, and then you don't have to waste any time putting down your Rift, especially with all these other exotics that we're able to use, which is going to literally just give us more grenades, more grenade energy, or more damage with our grenades. It's overall, it's just better, and you're going to have Devour procced literally 100% of the time because you're able to spam your grenades. Having to use your Rift sitting in the animation and also having to have your Rift be empowering rather than the on-demand heal, I don't think is good, and also it's just going to take more time. But you also literally just have an aspect that gives you Devour for free that you want to use all the time regardless of what build you're using. I could certainly see the Devour boots being good in a scenario where there is more aspects that you actually care about or something that is more powerful, but currently there's no reason to not use Feed the Void. Therefore, I think it makes those boots pretty much null and void. Okay, that was terrible. So getting into the exotics that I think are the best. First off, I think Contraverse Hold, and this is pretty much going to be the main build that I'm rocking for this video, I think Contraverse Hold is overall the best out of all of them. The reason being is that I think it is the most consistent. The thing that I really like about Contraverse Hold is that you can bring it into any form of content, and regardless of if you're getting kills or not, if you're killing a million enemies or not, you're going to be getting your grenade back constantly, and that's my favorite part about this, and it also is just going to make your Vortex Grenade extremely powerful, and I think it is the most consistent out of all of them. You can literally throw your grenade down, and just with this and putting Bomber on your class item, you're able to get your grenade back entirely without even getting a single kill, without even Devour procced, and I think that is ultimately the best thing. But also, charging up your grenade and it giving grenade energy back on hit, even if you're doing content where there's a lot of ads, this just makes your Vortex Grenade last longer, and it makes it very good for closing off enemies, or sorry, closing off like choke points or whatever, especially in Wellspring. You can just throw it down where the enemies are spawning and they're just constantly trapped in it, and you're getting your grenade back literally all the time. But it's also very, very good for just throwing at a boss, weakening them, and then you just doing a whole bunch of extra damage to them as well. My second favorite exotic, which I see almost nobody using surprisingly, is Nothing Manacles. The main reason that I like this is because it is going to give you an extra scatter grenade charge, and it also enables the tracking for scatter grenades. That's the only part that I don't like about it, is the tracking, because it has a very short radius, so pretty much you want to like direct hit enemies with the scatter grenade. But I really like this because it's fun being able to swap the scatter grenade and then having all those extra grenades, and it just makes it a lot better. And then you actually don't have to use a Chaos Accelerant for the charge. You can use the Child of the Old Gods Void aspect, so that you can literally just spam your Rift all the time and then spam grenades as a result, and it feels overall more synergistic than a lot of the other setups. And I really enjoy being able to just throw the scatter grenades because they do an insane amount of damage. However, these lack in content where enemies have a lot of health, or you're not able to get a good amount of kills with the scatter grenade itself. Also, I'm really bad at throwing the scatter grenade, so that is also another point. But if you don't like the scatter grenade, then you can very easily just not use Nothing Manacles. But I think that is probably my second favorite. My other third favorite, which I'd highly recommend, is Verity's Brow. So this is not only going to just give you a ton of energy for your grenades every single time that you get a kill. Here I'll show you a screenshot of how much energy it actually is going to give you. But it's also going to boost your grenade damage, which is going to double the damage overall. So if you're using like a Void Wall grenade, this is going to mean that that grenade can literally just solo a boss, or Carl, for example, doing like well over 200,000 damage with just the grenade. But it's also just going to make scatter, or whatever grenade you choose to use, extremely powerful. Not only that, it's going to give your allies insane amounts of grenade regeneration. I could not imagine 3 Warlocks all using this in a group, and all of you just using scatter grenade. I feel like you would just be able to constantly spam the grenades over and over again, and they would do an insane amount of damage as well. But the main thing about this is the versatility. You don't have to get a ton of kills in order to actually get your grenade back, because with Devour plus this, it's going to give you your grenade back very quickly. And you can use any grenade that you want, and you can use any fragment that you want. If you want to overcharge your grenades, you can use that. You don't have to use that though. You can also use the Rift thing, which is going to help you weaken enemies and just do extra damage and get your grenades back even faster. Since I think Contraverse Hold is the best, I'm going to talk about how I have it set up like this with Contraverse Hold, and then to keep the video shorter, I'm going to just show you guys screenshots of how I have it set up with Verities and with Nothing Manacles, just in an attempt to keep the video from being 30 minutes long. However, the majority of the things are the same. The main takeaways is the well mods and the aspects and the fragments. So with Contraverse Hold, you want to be using Chaos Accelerant because this is going to enable you to overcharge your grenades in the first place, and it's going to buff Vortex Grenade a little bit, making it last a bit longer, and that's pretty good. Obviously, you want to be using Vortex Grenade. I had Scatter Grenade on because I was using Nothing Manacles, whatever. You want Vortex Grenade on, and then you want Feed the Void so that you get Devour, and whenever Devour's up, it's going to give you grenade energy and full heal you, which is just absolutely ridiculous. In terms of the fragments that you want to use, you absolutely want Echo of Remnants to increase the duration of your Vortex Grenade. However, if you're doing content where you're just mobbing and there's not a lot of enemies, you could very easily swap this off. Let's talk about some of the other better fragments. So Echo of Undermining, this is pretty much mandatory with almost any of these builds. If you're using Nothing Manacles and you're killing things very quickly, you don't really need the Weaken. and then you can benefit from the weaken in the form of Child of the Old Gods Void aspect. But if you're using like Vortex Grenade, I think using this is pretty much mandatory because it's going to weaken targets with your Void Grenade, making them take 15% damage, and Vortex Grenade, because it constantly ticks, it's going to increase the damage of its own tick rate. And then we have Echo of Expulsion. This is pretty much a no-brainer. Void ability, final blows cause target to explode. So with Chaos Accelerant, we're only able to have 3 fragments, but if we were to be playing one of the other exotics with Child of the Old Gods, we'd be able to have a 4th exotic, or 4th fragment, 4th exotic. Echo of Provision. Damaging targets with grenades grants melee energy. This is very synergistic when you use it with Child of the Old Gods. Pretty much the gameplay loop is throw a grenade, cast your rift, kill an enemy, throw your melee, you already have your grenade back, throw a grenade, you already have your melee back, and you already have your rift back, and you can just spam all of that back and forth, and that's a whole lot of fun, especially with Echo Provision just giving you a whole bunch of extra melee energy. Alternatively, if you're having problems with getting grenade energy, which you shouldn't if you follow everything about this build, you can use Echo of Exchange, where melee final blows are going to grant you grenade energy. However, if you're playing Contraverse Hold, you're not really going to have your melee that often because you're not using Child of the Old Gods. But if you're using Child of the Old Gods with the other exotics, you're able to get a ton of rift cast off, which means you're going to get a lot of melee energy, so that this actually becomes pretty good. But you shouldn't need the grenade energy with all the other things that we're using in this build. Otherwise, Echo of Reprisal is good for getting extra super energy. I don't have it because a lot of the time I don't feel like I need the extra energy, and I would just rather have all these other fragments on. Getting extra duration to Devour I don't really think is worth it, because when this is set up properly, you're going to have that up all the time. Echo of Leeching is bad, and that's pretty much the only things that you need to care about. Probably the most important thing about this build is the Well mod. So let's talk about all the ones that you want to be using. Elemental Ordnance by far is the absolute best one because of reasons that I talked about earlier. In terms of anything else that you want to use to spawn wells, you want to use Elemental Armaments. You could also use Melee Wellmaker if you're using like Nothing Manacles or Verity's Brow, and you're using Child of the Old God so that you get your melee back frequently. But I would prefer to use Elemental Armaments because this is not going to rely on having your grenade or your melee at all. You can just get a kill and RNG get some wells to spawn, which is going to give you your Volatile Flow and your Font of Might. However, the only problem with this is that the chance is pretty low, but if you're getting a lot of kills with your gun, there's a pretty decent likelihood that this spawns. Alternatively, you can use Well of Ordnance so that whenever you pick up a solar well, it's going to give you additional grenade energy, and then you can use Explosive Wellmaker paired with that so that whenever you rapidly defeat enemies with explosive damage, it's going to spawn a solar elemental well. The reason I don't use that is because I literally don't have problems with my grenade anymore, because once I put on double grenade kickstart, obviously you want Font of Might by the way, once you put on double grenade kickstart and then you put on double bomber and then you pair that with bountiful wells, you're spawning void wells all the time, and bountiful wells is going to increase the amount of wells that spawn, therefore you're going to get more energy from it. And this is only a 1 mod commitment rather than Well of Ordnance plus Explosive Wellmaker being a double mod commitment, meaning that we're able to have more space for our other mods, which are Volatile Flow, Elemental Ordnance, and Font of Might, and then we have Elemental Armaments for, consistency's sake. Bomber plus Grenade Kickstart is going to mean that we just have our grenade all the time. On our boots, I just have Absolution and Invigoration just to increase the melee cooldown regeneration, but you could very easily swap this to Solar and get some grenade cooldown regeneration when you pick up orbs, or you could just throw on some scavenger mods in the place of these. These are not particularly great. Some other well mods that I think are particularly worth mentioning is Reaping Wellmaker. Anytime you use your class ability, your next weapon final blow on a combatant spawns a Void Elemental Well. If you're playing Verities or Nothing Manacles and you're able to spam your Rift like I was saying earlier, this is going to be a little bit more consistent than Elemental Armaments is, and it's going to spawn them a bit more frequently. But if you're using Contraverse Hold like I was saying, you're not going to be able to spam your Rift nearly as much, meaning that you're not going to be able to benefit all that much from Reaping Wellmaker. Alternatively, if you want more survivability, you can also put on Well of Tenacity in the place of another well spawning mod, in the place of Bountiful Wells, or in the place of Reaping Wellmaker, Melee Wellmaker, or Elemental Armaments. And this is just going to give you 50% damage reduction whenever you pick it up, which is very, very strong. Other honorable mentions for mods, I have Harmonic Siphon on every single one of my helmets because this is going to give you Orbs of Power all the time, which is very good for the boots mods. It's going to give you increased ability energy based on whichever one you picked, and it's also just going to help you get your super more. And then if my helmet is solar like it is with my setup with Contraverse Hold, I like to put on 1 Ashes to Assets. I think having 1 Ashes to Assets and then having 1 Harmonic Siphon is significantly better than having 2, and this is also going to free up your mod slot so that you can put on a 4 Recov or a 3 Discipline mod. Obviously for the stats, you want as much discipline as possible and then as much recovery as possible. There's a couple changes to the Nothing Manacles and the Verity's Brow build in terms of the other mods, but this video is already really long and very disjointed, so here are the images that I promised you guys. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to make this a little bit more easy to follow, but hopefully you guys have no problem following it. In terms of the weapons, you have a ton of options. Obviously, I'm using Funnel Web because personally, SMGs are my favorite type of weapon to use, and it's absolutely insane. The higher the RPM, the more volatile rounds that it's going to spawn on enemies, so I think that this is particularly good. Pair that with Wither Horde and then a Threaded Needle or a Falling Guillotine or any Void weapon, Red Herring maybe. It's insanely good. You have insane ad clear in the form of your grenades and Funnel Web, and then you have Wither Horde for any major, or you can just throw it on a spawn point and just kill a whole bunch of guys, and then you have your heavy weapon. Alternatively, I imagine a lot of you guys are pretty bored with using Wither Horde. You could throw on something like Pardon Our Dust, auto-loading Demolitionist, and then use this to clear out majors, and then you can use something like Parasite to just run around and one-shot guys anytime that you need to. If you don't want to use Funnel Web or you think that's pretty boring, Gnawing Hunger with Subsistence Demolitionist is very, very good with this. Demolitionist gives you a ridiculous amount of grenade energy. However, auto rifles are just significantly worse than Funnel Web is. If you want to use an exotic, Wave Splitter with Volatile Flow is like actually mind-blowingly good. However, you just run out of ammo a little bit, and I don't really want to use my exotic slot on the ad clear because that's pretty much covered when we have Funnel Web anyway, or if we have, our grenades up all the time. Another way to set this up is you can use an Osmosis primary, and then you can just use something like Null Composure. Null Composure is like, I wish that I had an SMG with Osmosis, to be honest, because Null Composure is one of my favorite weapons to use. Pair this with the volatile rounds. Any major that even looks at you, you just swap the Null Composure and blast them in the face, and then you can use Parasite paired with that, so that anytime that there's a boss, you just blow up the boss with Parasite. That's probably a very good loadout, but personally, I've been having a really good time with Funnel Web and Wither Horde and then Threaded Needle, but you could also use Falling Guillotine and all the other stuff that I mentioned. Sorry if this video was all over the place. If it was, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best next time, but I just wanted to do my best covering absolutely everything. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like, share it with your friends, subscribe for videos similar to this one, and I will see you guys later.